Welcome to Hope for the Uprooted. I'm so glad you joined us today. We have a special guest who's going to bring us lots of insight and tips on eating healthy and staying healthy. And Jill Maher, welcome. She is a certified nutrition and health coach. How are you today, Jill?
I'm doing great, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Well, it's going to be fun. You know, Jill, you are a great friend and live in the area, and I just feel that we are so blessed to have your knowledge and expertise in nutrition and health at a time like this when we are all looking at 2021 as how can we lose a little weight or tone up a little, or what are some tips, get, that kind of go-to. And we all need it as women. The joke is, oh my gosh, I've got COVID-15. In other words, I've gained 15 pounds during COVID. And I know I've put on a couple of pounds. So I thought, who better to talk to than you, because I'm going to write down everything you say. But
Right.
Hope for the Uprooted, of course, is to encourage you and bring you hope. And we will do that in various ways, and sometimes with special guests. And sometimes I will just share on a subject or of interest or what God puts on my heart. But let's jump in, Jill. And, how has COVID, how has the pandemic how has it impacted people all, overall health and nutrition? Just share about that a little bit.
Well, I think just from my perspective and in my nutrition practice, I've seen just so many people kind of frantically contacting me just to, they've put on, like you said, the COVID-15, or they're really stressed out because they can't, I guess some gyms are open now, but they have to wear a mask. And so some people don't want to go, or just the fear factor of not wanting to go to places where, there are a lot of people that potentially you could, I guess, pick up COVID. People are more isolated. So they, we turn to food for all different reasons, for comfort, in celebration, for loneliness, all kinds of reasons. And so I think people, the COVID epidemic or pandemic has kind of magnified those kinds of things, the isolation, the fear. So they're turning to food just to kind of help ease those feelings, I guess. And then, like I said, people are possibly, depending on where you are, I guess, in the country, depending on weather, if the gyms are closed and you live somewhere where it's super cold or super hot, like here in Arizona in the summer, it's hard to motivate to work out on your own and to stay physically active. So I see that where people are just working out less, eating more. And I think just overall, it's tough to stick to any kind of health or nutrition routine without having structure in your day. And let's face it, if you do work and you're working from home, most likely, or a lot of people are, it's a very loose structure. So it's kind of, I don't know, it seems like people do better when they have a routine throughout the day. You pack your lunch, maybe you go to work, you go to the gym, whereas all of that's kind of up in the air right now. So it's hard.
Well, it is. And just to piggyback on all of that, I find that working remotely from home, I've got to have a cup of coffee in hand, but what about a little something to go with that coffee,
Right.
And being out of routine, you nailed it. That is huge for me because, usually I pack a healthy lunch and, I just kind of gear my eating for the day and really avoid a lot of snacks when I'm at work. So that is especially hard. And if it's hard for me, gosh, I know it's hard for all of our friends out there in podcast land. But routine is huge. I think I have even found myself less motivated to walk and ride my bike. And gosh, that's one of my trademarks is I can remember when COVID first started. Of course, the weather wasn't cold and it wasn't too hot. And I'd get out and ride my bike one afternoon, and the next afternoon I'd walk. And I'd do anywhere from a mile to 3 miles. And I felt so good about that. And I have just really, I hate to admit it, but if I'm honest, I have just slacked off on that. And, that kind of does a number on me emotionally. Have you found that when you realize you're doing, eating when you shouldn't, that it affects you emotionally, Jill?
For sure. I mean, the mental health aspect of not, well, I mean, the lockdown, obviously, or a lot of people being quarantined and things is huge. And then if you throw in the nutrition and lack of exercise, if you're eating an excessive amount of sugar or just snacky foods in general, usually you don't feel good mentally, physically. You feel tired, lethargic. It all kind of plays into each other. And I think if you can, the exercise portion of things I think are just it's so mental, or it has so many mental benefits. You feel more energized. And some days when you feel like you just absolutely do not want to go outside, those are the days that if you can push yourself to go do something, or if you can't go outside, do some sort of workout or something just to get the blood pumping. And it just makes you never regret doing it. You always feel better after doing it.
That is for sure. I'll have to tell you, one of the things I do, when I'm getting real motivated and think, oh my gosh, it's too cold, I'm not going to go out and walk and ride my bike. When I stand in front of the refrigerator, this may sound funny, this is my own little exercise thing, and I hold on to the door handle, and then I will raise my leg out. I don't know if that's what that's called, but 10 times I will take like the left leg and go straight out, beside me. And then I'll take the right leg and go out beside me. So, I feel like, gosh, I'm moving. And so just little things like that, you can even do lunges on the way from the laundry room to the bedroom. I've even done that before. But
while you're brushing your teeth,
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, tell us some things that people can do to get back on track, Jill. We all know where we've messed up, and we all know, that we need to get back on track. So help us with that.
I think the biggest thing is don't stress out. People get really, really stressed out if they've gained weight. It just becomes, it's like this overwhelming feeling, I guess. And don't stress out. Just take little steps. I think starting small or set small, reasonable goals. Each week maybe have one goal and then stick to it. And I think maybe that's the hardest part, is the accountability. If you do have a friend who's willing to maybe meet you outside and go for a walk or something like that, do that. I think one thing I'll do is YouTube has about 10,000 million exercise videos on it for free. I mean, you can look up anything, stretching, whatever, like you're saying, like a toning video. I like to watch things. So you could do something like that and just say, okay, every morning for 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to do this as soon as I get out of bed, or something like that. And then as far as the food thing goes, with small goals, I would say set small, maybe limits on, okay, I'm only going to have 1 glass of wine on the weekend, or 2, whatever's reasonable for you. I'm only going to go out to eat or order takeout 2 times this week, or things like that are manageable goals that are also achievable. And then also I would say, even if you are working at home, or even if you're not working, but you're just home, if you're retired or stay-at-home mom or whatever you are, maybe set a little routine and make a schedule and write it out, and just schedule in the exercise, schedule in, set alerts to eat regularly, so that you're not having 5-6 hours go between meals and you're eating something just to keep your energy up. And it also prevents those huge blood sugar swings, where it's kind of like, then you're a bottomless pit trying to fill yourself up. So I think eating regularly, stock up on healthy food so that you don't have the junk in your house. That's the ultimate temptation. I mean, anyone, if you have cookies and ice cream, in your fridge, you're probably going to indulge if you're hungry or, lonely or feeling that range of emotions. And then the other thing that I really like to do is if I definitely have a sugar or a sweet tooth. And so one thing I like to do, with my son too, is having like a healthier alternative to some of the unhealthy treats you like. Like I'll make, healthy muffins, or I make these things called monkey cookies that are just oats, really ripe bananas, peanut butter, and then some chocolate chips, and you mix it all together. It's delicious. Things like that, I think are really helpful to stay on track.
Gosh, you've piqued my interest with monkey cookies. Is that recipe on your website, or can you put it on your website?
Yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
it may be on there, and if not, then I definitely will
Yeah.
post.
And by the way, everybody that's listening, Jill's website is Jill's, Jills, nutrition mission. Is that right?
Yes.
Jill's Nutrition Mission.com. Love that. But yeah, so, and I'm sure you can contact her through her website as well as pick up additional tips. But, every time I'm a huge muffin fan. And, every time I think about, I'd love to buy that muffin. And of course, they make them so big now, eating one, you feel like, oh my gosh. But I think of the short phrase, from my lips to my hips, and, just try not to do that. And although there are times that, I just feel like I'm just going to break down and eat a half a muffin, So
Right.
sometimes we can do that, can't we, Jill?
Oh, for sure. I think, yeah. And I do think if you become way too restrictive, that can cause another whole host of problems, then you start craving things that you might not have ever craved before. If you're,
Yeah.
It's such a fine line between being too focused on food, or like, as far as, I have to be healthy, I have to lose weight, I have to do this. And then just having, zero, inhibitions, I guess, or zero, like not eating in moderation, I guess.
Right.
I mean, you have to take care of your body. When you don't feel good physically, you don't feel good mentally either. And I want to feel good both ways. I don't want to feel foggy and sluggish, and, I want to be motivated and feel good. And for me, especially from a faith, perspective, I want to do all the things, I want to feel good so that I can serve the Lord and I can serve my family and things like that. But I think too, I mean, especially over the holidays, you're going to do things that are not, or might be out of the norm, or a little bit, you might have more cookies than you normally would. And it's not a big deal. You eat them in moderation, you enjoy it. If you're out with your friends or with family, you do things that you don't do every day. And then you move on with life. You go back to eating healthy, or eating your salads and getting your vegetables in, things like that.
Well, thank you for saying that, because, sometimes I just am too hard on myself. And you're right, it can cause as much harm one way as it can the other if you're too restrictive, because then you'll binge,
Right.
So, and there's so many diets out there now, and so many theories out there. What do you think, what plan is the best? What eating pattern is the best in your research?
Well, the most researched and, medically proven, I mean, they've done medical studies on this, and nutrition, it's difficult to research it, because usually when someone's being healthy in general, they add in exercise, they eliminate alcohol, they eliminate more sugar. So it is a hard thing to study, but the most researched, they've looked at populations, is the Mediterranean diet. It's those populations, they have more, they call it centurions. So people who live into their hundreds, than um, than most other areas of the world. They really think that the olive oil is one of the key factors in that diet. So I would say incorporate lots of olive oil. You have to be careful because certain olive oils, there's different what's called smoke points on them, and usually the temperature is on the bottle somewhere, so it'll tell you how hot or how high the temperature is for cooking that. So sometimes olive oil is best just to drizzle it on things, but anyway, eat lots of olive oil, lots of vegetables, fruits for sure, nuts, whole grains, and then lean proteins, especially fish, things like the wild fish. So like sockeye salmon, any cold water fish is better. They generally are just cleaner, less mercury, that kind of thing. And you can find these studies online. I think that the Mayo Clinic actually did one, and it was for a really long period of time. And they did it they tracked thousands of people, and the people who followed this diet with lots of olive oil had way less incidence of heart disease, cancer, all that stuff, diabetes. So I would say just follow that, way of eating. And then of course, the thing is too, with any eating plan, there has to be some portion size mindfulness, because you can obviously overindulge in anything. You can't eat unlimited quantities of anything. And I think you do need all the different what's called macronutrients. So your carbohydrates, your protein, and your fat. I think that's a very trendy thing right now. Oh my gosh. It's, we've gone from like no carbs to all fat with the keto diet, and these trendy diets, they're not sustainable. There's no research showing that. I mean, yes, you can lose weight, but the sustainability of that, like who's going to eat just fat the rest of their lives? And it's just not good for you overall. You need carbohydrates, you need protein, you need fat, you need all of them. And I think, like we said before, too much restriction leads to overindulgence later. So, if I eat no carbs in like 2 weeks, I'm going to be pounding stacks of pancakes and cookies, because you need that to help with your blood sugar, and it's just everything in moderation, I think.
Moderation and balance is what I'm hearing you say too. Balance.
Yeah.
You can go kind of overboard on a diet and lose weight quickly, but we have to remember balance, and that our body needs all of that, the protein, the carbs, the fat, in moderation, and eaten wisely with the right foods too.
Right.
So, and
like less processed things, more what's called whole foods. So things in their original, vegetables, less out of a box. I mean, of course, like you can buy really great sources of bread and crackers that all the ingredients are wonderful. And then another thing I forgot to mention this too, as far as like tracking portions and eating in a balance and that kind of thing. There's so many different tracking apps out there. Like I know a lot of people use one called MyFitnessPal. That's a great way just to see where you are, and you track what you eat, and you can kind of see what you're doing and see if you're way out of balance in one area, if you're eating way too many carbs or whatever.
Well, and you've really enlightened me. I keep forgetting, like you said, YouTube had so many workout different, plans and things. And then an app, to track your eating. I mean, how great is all that, to have all of those things accessible to us? And,
right.
That really does, well, you don't feel so alone if you can exercise with somebody, on YouTube. But, and the other thing is, now I love salmon, and, in the last few years, I'm more and more aware that wild salmon and cold water salmon are the way to go. But I do love salmon. But that has caused me to read labels. And, like I look for the word wild salmon, cold water,
right.
And I read labels intently, and, make sure that I don't have a lot of corn syrup and trans fats and all of that. So I think that's important too, is to be more conscious when you're in the grocery store, right?
Yeah. And just remember that, the front of the box, there really are not many labeling laws. So the front of the box or container or bag or whatever is like a marketing dream. You know what I mean? So even if it says like healthy, I've used this example in a couple talks before. There's a cereal called Smart Start. And if you look at the box, it's so funny. It's like, it's got a heart on it. It's, green. It looks super healthy. It's one of the worst cereals you can eat. It's got like, it's an insane amount of added sugar to it. I think it's like 12 different sources of sugar. And so it's very confusing because you'll look at a container and then you forget to read the back of it and it'll say healthy, Smart Start, great for your heart. But then if you actually look at the ingredients, there's 12, like I said, there's 12 different kinds of sugar. And so one thing, educate yourself, but anything that ends in OSE is a form of sugar. So, fructose, maltose, lactose, and then things like brown rice syrup and, raw cane sugar, all these things, it's just sugar. It really is. So they can write it any way that they want, but it's, at the end of the day, it's sugar. So I think knowing that kind of thing and being an informed consumer really help you at the grocery store. It's crazy. I mean, there's so many ways to, now like gluten-free, that's a healthy thing that draws people, but it might be completely processed, so unless you really do have like a gluten intolerance, you're almost better just getting an organic, grainy source of whatever you're eating, grain, bread, whatever, and skipping the gluten-free option. It's so confusing.
Yeah, it really is. And, I am a visual person, and I don't know if I saw it on TV or where to give credit for this, but someone said, eat the rainbow. And I know I mentioned that to you earlier. That is a visual for me. In other words, the fruits and the vegetables of color. And that's important. Root vegetables and, beets are coming back. I remember when my mother force fed me beets when I was little, and now they're, so popular, as are Brussels sprouts and, all kind of thing. Everything that goes around comes around. But eat the rainbow. That's a good thing to remember, isn't it, Jill?
Yes. I mean, all those vegetables, like leafy greens, are some of the most nutritious things you can eat. And and all vegetables, they're just stock full of nutrition, different vitamins and minerals. Even, like cauliflower. And I actually have this handout for children, or parents who come to me and, want their children to eat healthy. And it's kind of a fun way of tracking, that you're eating enough vegetables, and it's a rainbow, and then it lists all the different fruits and vegetables underneath it. So like red, would be whatever, apples, beets, all those kinds of things. And you just check off 1 or 2 a day just to be eating, a variety of, you're getting all the different vitamins and minerals that your body really needs.
Well, and yeah, so that's kind of my new little phrase. When I go to the grocery store, I look for the rainbow in food and try to make sure that I eat the rainbow in some portion or another. Well, Jill, as we close, we know the impact that healthy eating and nutrition has on our spiritual health as well as our mental health. And I know you touched on that. And just, close us with just reminding our listeners that, we're honoring God when we take care of our bodies, and just elaborate on that and the healthiness of that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Your body, I feel like it's sometimes overused or in different places, but your body really is a temple. God gave you this body, and take care of it. It's not just to look good, to be thin or whatever. It's also just so you can focus. And like I said, if I eat, too many sugar snacks, I don't feel good mentally. I feel lethargic, and I feel like you can't you can't serve him or others to the best of your ability. So I do feel like God wants you to take care of yourself physically, so you can do what he wants you to do in life, and that you can focus on what he is telling you in your quiet time or prayer life or whatever. But like we said, I feel like you don't want to go overboard with that either, as far as caring for you want, still in moderation. He still wants you to enjoy yourself and socialize and that kind of thing.
I think, what you're saying is anything in excess, whether it's shopping or food or clothes or anything that you do in excess that you set your heart on, that becomes your God. That becomes your focus. That becomes, that consumes your thinking. And everything is in moderation, and everything is, it's important to not only have balance in your life, but to put God as your primary focus, and have a desire to please him mentally and physically. And it's guard your heart, guard your mind, from what you see, what you read. Well, the same thing is, and what you hear. And the same thing is true of our bodies. Guard your body. It is a temple. And I think that for me, I feel like that, eating healthy, you're right, Jill. It's not about looking good. It's about honoring God with how you treat your body. And that all goes back to healthy eating. So, Jill, do you want to close with any final word?
No, I guess just if anyone has any questions or needs healthy ideas or anything like that, feel free to reach out. And just remember not to just, eat clean foods, take care of yourself, and then don't stress out about maybe the past year of unhealthy eating.
Start now and move forward, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Jill, for joining Hope for the Uprooted. And there's also hope for our eating in 2021 and taking care of ourselves. And we're so glad that all of you have joined us today. And it's just been a joy to have you on, Jill. And I can't wait to ask you more questions and find out more ways that I can begin to move forward with my own eating. Thank you for joining us with Hope for the Uprooted, and we will see you next time. May God be the glory, and hey, it just doesn't get much better than that. Thanks for joining us today.